Congratulations, Zara, truly. Congratulations. When I saw you flirting with my husband at the market. When I noticed the way you laughed at his jokes. When I caught the secret glances between you two at the village gathering, everyone expected me to fight, to cry, to beg him to stay, to confront you with anger and tears. But you know what I did instead. I smiled. Because in that moment, watching you seduce the man everyone called the perfect husband, I realized something that changed everything. You weren't stealing my prize. You were taking my prison. You were claiming my nightmare. You spent months believing you were winning the most eligible man in Amiazi, the respected businessman, the man every woman supposedly envied me for having. But what you really won, dear Zara, was 8 years of hell wrapped in a beautiful lie. This is my story. The story of how the woman who tried to destroy my marriage actually became my salvation. Welcome to our channel of African folktales and true stories. If you enjoy tales of wisdom, strength, and life lessons from our rich African culture, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment telling us which country you're watching from. We love connecting with our community across Africa and around the world. Now, let me tell you how I went from victim to victor, and how you, Zara, became the answer to prayers you didn't even know I was praying. My name is Amara, and I live in Amiazi, a small but prosperous town in our beautiful country. 8 years ago, I married Kwame, a successful businessman who owned 3 shops in town and had connections with suppliers in the city. On our wedding day, my mother held my hands and said, "Amara, you are blessed. Kwame is a good man from a respected family. You will want for nothing." She was right about one thing. I wanted for nothing material. Our house was the finest in our neighborhood. I wore beautiful clothes. I never worried about food or money. But what my mother didn't know, what nobody knew, was that behind the closed doors of our beautiful home, I was dying a little more each day. The first time Kwame hit me was 3 months after our wedding. I had prepared his favorite meal, but I had added too much pepper. He tasted it, his face changed, and before I could apologize, his hand struck my cheek so hard I fell to the floor. "You're trying to poison me," he shouted. "After everything I've given you, this is how you repay me." I was shocked, terrified. This wasn't the man who had courted me with sweet words and gifts. This wasn't the man who had promised to cherish me before our families and before God. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my cheek burning. "It was a mistake. I'll make something else." He grabbed my hair and pulled me up. "You'll learn to do things properly. I didn't marry you to be disrespected in my own home." That night, I cried quietly in the bathroom, convinced it was my fault. I had ruined his meal. I had disappointed him. I would do better. But better was never enough. The next time, I had folded his shirt wrong. Then I had greeted his friend too warmly. Then I had spent too much at the market. Then not enough. There was always something. And each time, his anger came with fists, slaps, or words so cruel they left wounds deeper than any physical blow. "You're worthless," he would say. "Without me, who would want you? I took you from your poor family and gave you everything. You owe me respect." I learned to walk on eggshells, to anticipate his moods, to hide my bruises with long sleeves and makeup, to smile in public while dying inside. The worst part wasn't the violence itself. It was the silence I had to keep. Because to everyone else, Kwame was perfect. At the market, women would tell me, "Amara, you're so lucky. Your husband provides so well for you." At church, the pastor would use us as an example of a blessed marriage. At family gatherings, my own relatives would say, "See how happy Amara is? We chose well for her." If only they knew. If only they could see the bruises hidden under my beautiful clothes. If only they heard the names he called me when no one else was listening. If only they knew that every night I went to sleep wondering if tomorrow would be the day he finally killed me. I thought about leaving many times, but where would I go? Back to my family who saw this marriage as their greatest achievement. To a society that would blame me for not being a good enough wife. In our community, A woman who leaves her husband brings shame to her entire family. People would say I wasn't trying hard enough, that I was exaggerating, that all marriages have problems. So I stayed, I endured. I prayed for change that never came. I became a shadow of myself, going through the motions of life while feeling dead inside, until you came along, Zara. I first noticed you at the church fundraiser 6 months ago. You were new to Amiazi, having moved here for a teaching position at the primary school. You were beautiful, confident, and ambitious. And from the moment Quaim saw you, I could see the shift in his attention. At first, I felt the familiar twist of anxiety. Would this give him another reason to hurt me? Would he accuse me of not being as attractive as you? Would he compare me to you and find me lacking? But then something unexpected happened. As I watched you pursue him and, yes, Zara, I saw everything. I began to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. You were not subtle, Zara, but then again, you didn't think you needed to be. You saw a successful man with a beautiful home and a quiet wife, and you decided you wanted what I had. You had no idea what you were really asking for. I remember the first time you openly flirted with Quaim. It was at the market on a Saturday morning. I was selecting vegetables when I heard your laugh loud, flirtatious, designed to attract attention. I looked up and saw you standing very close to Quaim, touching his arm as you spoke, looking up at him with admiration in your eyes. Mr. Quaim, you said, your voice carrying across the market, you must teach me your business secrets. How does one become so successful in a town like this? Quaim preened under your attention. He loved being admired, especially by a young, beautiful woman. It takes hard work and intelligence, he said, puffing out his chest. Not everyone has what it takes. You laughed again, as if he had said something incredibly clever. I can see that. You're not like other men in this town. You have vision. I watched this interaction with a strange detachment. The old Amara would have been terrified, knowing that this would later be used against me. He would come home and say I wasn't appreciative enough, that I didn't admire him like other women did, that I was lucky he hadn't divorced me already. But this new awareness I was developing made me see things differently. I watched you watching him, and I saw your calculations. You saw his nice clothes, his confident demeanor, his apparent wealth. You saw a prize worth winning. What you didn't see was how his hand had bruised my arm that morning because I had suggested we visit my parents that weekend. You didn't see how he controlled every aspect of my life. You didn't see the monster behind the mask. Over the following weeks, your pursuit became more aggressive. You would accidentally run into us at church, always dressed in your finest clothes. You would visit his shop with the thinnest excuses you needed advice on buying furniture. You wanted to know where to purchase quality fabric. You were thinking of starting a small business and valued his expertise. Each time, you would ignore me completely or give me the briefest, most dismissive greeting. Hello, Sister Amara, you would say with barely concealed contempt, before turning all your attention to Quaim. I should have hated you. Every wronged wife should hate the other woman. But I didn't, because with every flirtation, every touch, every admiring glance you gave him, I saw my escape route forming. Quaim began staying out later. He started taking more business trips to the city. He bought new clothes and a new phone one he kept password protected. He began criticizing me more openly in front of others, making jokes about my cooking or my appearance, testing to see how far he could push before people would accept him moving on. At night, when he came home smelling of your perfume, he would still hit me. But now there was something different in his eyes. Calculation, he was planning something. You've gotten fat, he said one evening, looking at me with disgust. Look at you. You've let yourself go. It's embarrassing to be seen with you. This was a lie. I had actually lost weight from stress and fear. But truth didn't matter to Quaim. What mattered was building his narrative, his justification for what he was planning to do. I played my part perfectly. I apologized. I promised to do better. I acted like the broken, desperate wife everyone expected me to be. But inside, I was calculating too. I started gathering documents copies of ownership papers for our house and his businesses. Bank statements I found in his office. Photographs of assets. I hid money, small amounts he wouldn't notice missing, in an account I opened secretly in a bank in the next town. I reconnected with an old school friend who had moved to the city and quietly asked if I could stay with her if I ever needed to. I prepared for my escape while everyone, including you, Zara, thought I was the pitiful wife clinging to a failing marriage. 3 months after you arrived in Amayazi, Quame's mother came to visit. This was unusual. She lived 2 hours away and rarely made the journey. I prepared the house meticulously, knowing that any imperfection would be my fault. During dinner, she barely spoke to me. All her attention was on Quame after the meal. I heard them talking in the living room. I stood in the kitchen, pretending to clean while listening. My son, his mother said, "You cannot continue like this. It's clear that Amara cannot make you happy. A man of your stature deserves a woman who appreciates him." My hands froze in the dishwater. His mother, the woman who had welcomed me into their family 8 years ago, was giving him permission to leave me. "I know, Mama," Quame replied, "but what will people say? We've been married 8 years. People will say you gave her every chance, that you tried, that she failed as a wife. After all, you have no children together. Perhaps that is God's way of telling you this marriage was a mistake. The lack of children was another wound. We had no children not because I couldn't have them, but because Quame refused to let me rest long enough to get pregnant properly. Every pregnancy ended in miscarriage, 3 of them each, one happening after he had beaten me in rage. But of course, in our community, childlessness was always the woman's fault. There is a young woman," Quame said carefully. "A teacher, educated, respectful, she would make a proper wife. Then perhaps it is time to make changes," his mother said. "I will support you. The family will support you. Amara can go back to her family. We will give her some money, enough to show we are not heartless, but you must be free to find happiness." I stood in that kitchen, and for the first time in years, I felt something other than fear. I felt relief because this was it. This was my way out. They were going to let me go. All I had to do was make sure they believed it was their idea, not mine. The next few weeks were a carefully choreographed dance. I had to play my role perfectly, the failing wife who was losing her husband but was too weak to fight back. It wasn't hard. I had been playing a role for 8 years. What was a few more weeks? Quame became more blatant about his affair with you. He would mention your name deliberately, watching my reaction. Zara says this. Zara thinks that each mention was a test, a way to see if I would fight or flee. I gave him neither. Instead, I played the defeated wife. I would lower my head. Sometimes I would let a tear fall. I would say nothing, appearing crushed but accepting. This was exactly what he wanted. A wife who was broken enough to let him go without a fight, but not broken enough to generate sympathy from the community. He needed me to appear at fault somehow, so I gave him what he needed. I accidentally burned his dinner one evening. I forgot to iron his favorite shirt. Small mistakes that a woman under stress might make, but that he could use as evidence of my inadequacy, you see? He would say to his friends when they visited, making sure I could hear. She can't even manage simple household tasks anymore. What kind of wife is this? His friends, sitting in our living room, would murmur sympathetically. Some would glance at me with pity. Others would avoid my eyes, uncomfortable with witnessing a marriage falling apart. But one of them, Mr. Asay, an older businessman who had known Quame's father, watched me with a strange expression. He caught my eye once, and something in his gaze told me he saw more than the others did. He saw the bruises I tried to hide. He saw my fear. But like everyone else in our community, he said nothing. It wasn't his place to interfere in another man's marriage. Meanwhile, you were blooming, Zara. You walked around Amayazi with a new confidence, like a woman who had already won. You wore new jewelry gifts from Quame, though you pretended otherwise. You spoke about your future plans with barely concealed excitement. I overheard you talking to other women at the market one day. You didn't see me standing on the other side of the vegetable stall that Amara, you said with disdain. She doesn't appreciate what she has. If I had a man like Quaim, I would treat him like a king. I would make him proud every day. Your friend laughed. Maybe you'll get your chance. Everyone can see that marriage is ending. It's sad, you said, your voice dripping with false sympathy. But some women just aren't meant to be wives. They don't have what it takes. I smiled to myself as I walked away. Oh, Zara, you had no idea what being Quaim's wife truly meant. But you would learn. Soon enough, you would learn. The final act came 2 months after his mother's visit. Quaim called me into the living room one evening. His mother was there again, along with his uncle and 2 elders from the church. My heart pounded, but not with fear. With anticipation. This was it. Amara, Quaim began, his voice formal. We need to talk about our marriage. I lowered my head, playing the submissive wife. Yes, my husband. It's clear that things have not been working between us. You have tried, I have tried, but perhaps God has different plans for us. His mother nodded approvingly. The elders looked uncomfortable but said nothing. I have decided, Quaim continued, that it would be best if we separate. I will provide for you, of course. I'm not a heartless man. I will give you money to start a new life. But this marriage cannot continue. I let the silence stretch. Let them think I was devastated, processing this information. Then I lifted my head and spoke the words I had been practicing. If that is what you believe is best, I said softly, then I accept. I only ask that the separation be done properly, with respect for both families. Quaim looked surprised. He had expected more resistance, more begging. His mother actually looked disappointed, as if she had been preparing for a scene that didn't happen. You accept, Quaim said. What choice do I have? I said, letting my voice break slightly. If you no longer want me as your wife, I cannot force you to keep me. I will go quietly. I ask only for what is fair. The elders nodded, relieved. This was going better than they had hoped. No drama, no public shame. What do you consider fair? His uncle asked. This was my moment. The house was purchased with my dowry money combined with Quaim's savings when we married. I ask for half its current value. I also ask for 6 months of support to establish myself. That is all. It was actually less than I was legally entitled to, but I knew asking for too much would make them fight. By asking for less, I appeared reasonable, even noble. Quaim's mother started to protest, but Mr. Assay, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. That is more than fair. In fact, it is generous of her to ask so little. I suggest you accept these terms. Quaim, it will show the community that you are a man of honor. Quaim couldn't refuse without looking heartless. Fine, I agree. The papers were drawn up within a week. I signed them with a steady hand, watched by witnesses. Just like that, 8 years of hell were officially ending. The money was transferred to my account enough for a fresh start, though less than what 8 years of abuse and suffering were worth. But I didn't care about the money. I cared about freedom. The day I left was quiet. I had already moved most of my important belongings secretly over the previous weeks, taking them to the city bit by bit. On my final day in that house, I packed one small bag and called a taxi. Quaim wasn't even there. He was with you, Zara, celebrating his impending freedom. I walked through each room of that beautiful house one last time. The living room where I had been slapped for greeting a guest wrong. The kitchen where I had been pushed against the counter for overcooking rice. The bedroom where I had learned to sleep with one eye open, never knowing what might set him off. And then I walked out. I closed that door, and with it, I closed that chapter of my life. As my taxi pulled away, I saw Mrs. Kofi, our neighbor, watching from her window. She had heard the fights, I'm sure. She had seen the bruises I couldn't always hide. But she had never said anything, never offered help. Now she watched me leave with an expression I couldn't read. Pity? Relief? Guilt? I turned away and looked forward toward the city, toward my new life. Behind me, the prison door had finally opened, and I had walked through it into freedom. While you, dear Zara, were about to walk in. I spent the first month in the city in a blur of firsts. The first night sleeping without fear. The first morning waking up without checking someone else's mood. The first meal I ate without anxiety about whether it was prepared correctly. The first time I laughed without wondering if it was too loud. My friend Amma, who had offered me refuge, asked me one evening why I smiled so much. Because I can, I told her. For 8 years, I couldn't smile unless he allowed it. Now I smile because I choose to. I found a job at a textile company, working in their accounting department. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I earned my own money. I made my own decisions. I could come and go as I pleased. At night, I would lie in my small rented room so much smaller than the big house I had left and feel richer than I ever had before. Because poverty with freedom is better than wealth with chains. Through mutual friends still in Amiazi, I heard about what was happening back home. The news came in pieces, like a puzzle slowly revealing its complete picture. You married Quaim 2 months after our divorce was finalized. Zara, it was a big celebration, I heard. You wore white lace and smiled like you had won the lottery. The whole town came. People said you were glowing, that Quaim had finally found the wife he deserved. For the first few months, everything seemed perfect. You posted photos on social media, you and Quaim at restaurants, at the beach, in your beautiful home. You captioned them with quotes about love and blessings and being grateful. I saw those photos and I waited because I knew. I knew it was only a matter of time. The first crack in your perfect facade appeared about 4 months after your wedding. My friend Akasua, who still lived in Amiazi, called me Amara, she said, her voice troubled. I saw Zara at the market today. She was wearing a long-sleeve dress even though it was so hot. And when she reached for something on a high shelf, I saw bruises on her arm. I closed my eyes. Did you say anything to her? I tried. I asked if she was okay. But she smiled, you know that smile. The one that says everything is fine when it isn't and changed the subject quickly. Yes, I knew that smile. I had worn it for 8 years. There's more, Akasua continued. Mrs. Kofi told me she heard shouting from that house last week, loud enough that she could hear it through the walls. And someone else said they saw Zara crying in the church bathroom last Sunday. I felt a complex mix of emotions. Not satisfaction, I never wanted any woman to suffer what I had suffered, but a grim acknowledgement that truth was revealing itself. Keep an eye on her, I told Akasua. And if she ever reaches out or seems like she wants help, let her know. Let her know I understand. Over the next months, the reports continued. Zara stopped posting photos on social media. She stopped attending social events. When she did appear in public, she was always covered up, always quiet, always looking over her shoulder. The confident, ambitious woman who had fought so hard to take my place was disappearing, being erased the same way I had been erased. But Zara, you made a different choice than I did. Or perhaps you were braver than I was. Or perhaps the difference was that you had seen what happened to me, so you knew there could be life after escape. 9 months after your wedding, you went to the police. Akasua called me that day, her voice shaking with emotion. Amara, you won't believe what happened. Zara filed a report against Quaim for domestic violence. She had photographs, medical records from the clinic, everything. The police arrested him today. I sat down, my hands trembling. Is she safe? She's staying with her sister in another town. But Amara, that's not all. After she filed her report, 3 other women came forward, women he had dated before he married you. They all had similar stories, 3 other women. Before me, which meant I wasn't the first. I wasn't the exception. I was just another victim in a long pattern. And Akasua's voice dropped to a whisper. Mr. Issei, that old businessman, he gave a statement too. He said he had suspected abuse during your marriage, but didn't know how to intervene. He said he regretted his silence and wanted to support the case against Quame now. Too little, too late for me, but perhaps not too late for justice. The case moved through the courts slowly, as these things do. But this time, there was too much evidence to ignore too many witnesses. Too many victims willing to speak. Quame tried to deny everything, of course. He hired expensive lawyers. He claimed you were lying for money, that the other women were conspiring against him, that everyone was jealous of his success, but the truth has a way of being stubborn. Medical records don't lie. Photographs of bruises don't lie. Multiple independent testimonies telling the same story don't lie. 6 months after your initial report, Quame was convicted. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to attend rehabilitation programs. His businesses were seized to pay damages to his victims. The man who had once walked around Amiyazi like a king was now exposed as the monster he had always been. And you, Zara? I heard you moved to the city too. Not the same neighborhood as me, but close enough that we could have crossed paths. One day, we did. I was at a market buying fabric when I turned a corner and there you were. For a moment, we just stared at each other. You looked different than her, more serious, but there was also something in your eyes that hadn't been there before. Strength, maybe, or wisdom earned through suffering. Amara, you said quietly, Zara. An awkward silence stretched between us. Then you spoke words I never expected to hear. I'm sorry. For everything, I thought I was winning. I thought you were just a weak wife who didn't know how to keep her husband happy. I didn't know. I didn't understand. I looked at this woman who had once tried to destroy my marriage, who had unknowingly saved my life, and I felt no anger, only a sad solidarity. Now you know, I said softly. Now you understand what you were really fighting for. It wasn't a prize. You whispered it was a curse. No, I corrected gently. He was the curse. The prize was getting free of him. We both won that eventually, just in different ways. Your eyes filled with tears. Can I ask you something? How did you survive it for so long? 8 years. How? I don't know, I admitted. I just kept thinking that tomorrow might be different, that he might change, that I could fix it if I just tried harder. It took me 8 years to realize that I wasn't the problem. He was, and I couldn't fix him. I only lasted 9 months, you said, and I thought I was going to die. But you didn't, you got out. You got help. You did something I never had the courage to do. You went to the police. You made sure he faced consequences. That took real bravery. I did it because of you, you said. Because I saw that you had survived leaving him, that there was life after him. If you hadn't left first, if you hadn't shown it was possible, I might never have found the courage. We stood there in that busy market, to women who had loved and suffered at the hands of the same man, and for the first time, we truly saw each other. Not as rivals, not as the wife and the other woman, but as survivors. 2 years have passed since that day in the market. 2 years since Quame was sent to prison. 2 years since I started building a real life, not just surviving, but actually living. I'm still in the city. I've been promoted at my job and now manage my own small team. I've made friends, real friends, who know my story and support me. I've even started dating again, though I'm taking it slowly. Learning to trust is hard when trust was used as a weapon against you for so long. But the most important thing I've done is this. I've started a small support group for women who have left abusive relationships. We meet every week in a community center. We share our stories. We support each other. We remind each other that we are not alone. Zara comes to the meetings sometimes. She's studying again, finishing a degree she had put aside. She's rebuilding her life too, piece by piece. Last month, she stood up in our group meeting and shared something I'll never forget. When I first saw Amara's marriage, she said, I saw a beautiful house, nice clothes, a successful husband. I saw everything I thought I wanted. What I didn't see was the fear, the control, the violence hidden behind closed doors. I thought I was stealing her prize, but the truth is, I stole her problem. And that problem almost destroyed me. She turned to look at me. But here's what I learned. Amara didn't lose anything when I took Quaim from her. She gained everything. Her freedom, her peace, her life. And weirdly, in trying to hurt her, I became the instrument of her liberation. It's strange how life works. You tried to take what you thought was mine. And in doing so, you gave me the greatest gift possible, a way out that didn't make me look like the bad guy. A way to escape without shame, without blame, without bringing dishonor to my family. The community that had once praised my marriage to Quaim now whispers about him with disgust. The man who was once held up as a model husband is now known as an abuser. The respect he craved so desperately has turned to contempt. As for me, people in Amiazi talk about me too, but differently now. That Amara, they say, she was so strong to endure what she did, so brave to start over, look at her now. It makes me angry sometimes, those comments, because I wasn't strong or brave during those 8 years. I was scared and trapped and dying slowly. The strength came after, when I had to rebuild myself from nothing. But I've learned not to argue with people's narratives. Everyone needs their stories to make sense of the world. Last week, I received a letter from Quaim. He's served 2 years of his 5-year sentence and is up for parole soon. In the letter, he claims he's changed. He's been through therapy, anger management, rehabilitation programs. He says he's sorry for everything he did to me, to Zara, to the others. He wants to meet with me, to apologize in person, to make amends that I haven't responded yet. I'm not sure I will. Because here's what I've learned. Forgiveness is complex. Some people think you have to forgive to move on. But I've moved on without forgiving him. I've built a life without needing his apology or his redemption. His journey is his own now. Mine is separate from his. That doesn't mean I wish him harm. I hope he has changed. I hope he never hurts another woman. But I don't need to be part of that story to verify it. My story is about what comes after, about rebuilding, about learning that love should never cost you your safety, your dignity, your sense of self. Zara and I have become friends in a way neither of us expected. We meet for lunch sometimes, and we talk about everything: our jobs, our goals, our healing. We laugh about the irony of it all. You know what's funny? She said to me last month over coffee, everyone saw us as enemies. The wife and the other woman. But you and I, we were never the enemies. He was, she's right. Women are so often pitted against each other, taught to compete, to see each other as threats. But the real threat was the man who hurt us both. Now, when young women in my support group talk about their abusive partners, I share my story. And I tell them what I wish someone had told me 8 years earlier. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. What he's doing is not love. Real love doesn't hurt. Real love doesn't control. Real love doesn't require you to shrink yourself to make someone else feel big. I tell them, the day you leave will be scary. You'll doubt yourself. You'll worry about what people will say. You'll wonder if you're making a mistake. But I promise you, the fear of leaving is nothing compared to the hell of staying. And I tell them, when you get out, when you start rebuilding, you'll look back and wonder how you survived it. But you did survive it. And that makes you stronger than you know. So, Zara, if you're wondering if I ever truly hated you, the answer is no. You were never my enemy. You were a confused woman who made a terrible mistake, and that mistake saved my life. Congratulations, girl. You stole my problem, not my man. And in doing so, you freed us both. To everyone listening to this story, I want you to understand something. Abuse hides in plain sight. The perfect marriage might be a prison. The successful husband might be a monster. The smiling wife might be dying inside. If you see signs, long sleeves, and hot weather, unexplained bruises, a woman who suddenly becomes quiet and withdrawn, someone who can't make decisions without checking with their partner, please say something. Please offer help. Don't look away and tell yourself it's not your business. Because silence enables abusers. Silence tells victims they're alone. Silence kills. And if you're the one suffering, please know it's not your fault. You didn't cause this. You can't fix him. And you deserve so much better. There is life after abuse. There is joy after pain. There is freedom after prison. I'm living proof of that. My name is Amara, and this is my story. Not a tragedy, but a triumph. Not an ending, but a beginning. And to claim wherever you are, whatever you've become, thank you. Not for the pain you caused, but for the strength I found in surviving it. You tried to break me, but I'm still here. Stronger than ever, freer than ever. You thought you were my master, but it turns out you were just my teacher. And the lesson you taught me was the most important one. I don't need anyone's permission to value myself. I don't need anyone's approval to choose freedom. This is my happy ending, not because I found another man, not because I got revenge, but because I found myself. And that, dear listeners, is the most important love story of all. Thank you for listening to this African folktale. If this story touched your heart, or if you know someone who needs to hear it, please share it. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of wisdom, courage, and triumph from across Africa and beyond. And remember, your story doesn't have to end in pain. There is always hope. There is always a way forward. You are stronger than you know. Leave a comment telling us what you learned from Amara's story and which country you're watching from. Until next time, stay strong, stay blessed, and remember, freedom is the greatest gift you can give yourself.
Era uma vez um amigo que traiu a confiança de todos.